after 11 years of arbitrary detention. After 7 years holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy. And now after 3 years in solitary confinement in Her Majesty's prison, Belmarsh. That reminds me, his 51st birthday, which will be his 4th consecutive birthday in Her Majesty's prison, Belmarsh, the new tower. We will be here on Town Hall steps to quote, celebrate, unquote, Julian's 51st birthday. You're all invited. Please come along. And one thing you can do for it, we've got a QR code here if any of you would like to come up. Here it is here, right behind me. The top one. That petition with your help we can win, because we are the power. The bankers who control the money supply trust nothing that you hear on the mainstream media, because the mainstream media is controlled and it's peddling propaganda. So be aware that your mind is being manipulated through propaganda and fear. Fear is the great enabler of what's called mass formation. And if somebody's scared, they can be easily controlled by those who control the propaganda. Thank you for listening.
Julian Assange.
What did he do?
Maybe we can reach out all over the program.
That was pretty brave because he knew her well.
Yes. Because I have a question about this.
Why don't you go and sort that out first?
So, John said,
Why 2.5 years? Yes. Okay, that would be... You get And if Tony's
Julian, free Julian.
Free Julian.
Free Julian.
Let them do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Good evening, Sydney. How are we all doing? Off on a nightly jaunt, coming back from work and out to enjoy ourselves. Let's spare a moment for one great Australian who cannot move. He's sitting half naked in a cell in London, England, Belmarsh Prison. None other than our wonderful brother, fellow countryman, Julian Assange. You may ask yourself, why is a award-winning journalist who's told us all about the terrible things that went on in wars throughout the Middle East and the wars that were to come too. I think that was the danger with Assange, that people really realized at the highest levels of corruption was that this was a man that could tell you what was going to be happening next. And we all know what's been happening next. There's been many incursions into war since he's been arrested. There's many lies that have been told since he's been arrested, and there's a lot of truth that hasn't been told to us. So, in fact, they've done what they've set out to do. They've silenced the truth, and that is what they intend to do for the rest of our lives, is keep us in the dark. To let us know virtually nothing except for the corporate opinion for the day. The corporate opinion may change tomorrow, so therefore the truth will change tomorrow. And the press will follow, and the press will lead. And we'll know nothing, and we'll be led into perhaps our demise. Certainly in some areas of the world it's demise, and other areas it's kept at a reasonable standard. At this moment in Australia, it's a reasonable standard, though we see the petrol prices rising, we see the prices of lettuces rising, we see the general, the mobility of people who've been locked up for a couple of years. So we're used to being controlled, and that control is going to continue unless we have a free and honest press, unless we're allowed to know what's going on in the world, in the Ukraine, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Canberra. If we could know what's going on in Canberra, that would be a start. But we know nothing. We have moguls like Murdoch who control the world, who tell us what to think, what to eat, what to wear, and how much will our petrol cost. These are the people who are controlling us. We have to know more than what they are about to tell us. We have to know, and so we can plan our lives, plan the lives of our children, plan the lives of our grandchildren. But Murdoch and his cohorts, the petrochemical moguls and their cohorts, the war machine and their cohorts have decided a future for us. And that future we don't know. It won't be the same everywhere. The future in Australia may be good for a while, it may be fine. But ultimately we'll pay the price for ignorance. We will pay the price for not getting on with knowing, and the only way we can know is if we have a free press. Free Julian Assange, let the truth be known. Free Julian Assange, and allow him to let us know, let us to understand and move ahead as a nation, as a world. Thank you.
Extradition to the US.
to the 135th week of Julian Assange Sydney Town Hall gatherings. We are people who have decided to take responsibility to do something positive about freeing Julian Assange. Our new Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, previously stated, "Enough is enough," regarding the imprisonment of Julian Assange. But after a month of the new Labor government, Julian continues to languish in high-security UK prison while he continues to fight his extradition to the US. In relation to Julian, Mr. Albanese did suggest he believed in quiet diplomacy, but has very recently stated that he will not intervene publicly to prevent Julian's extradition. We have witnessed 12 years of betrayal from high-ranking political figures with the power to do something meaningful on Julian's behalf. While it is easy to pour scorn on these political leaders, they will continue to get away with their crimes. When our governments fail to act democratically, we must each take responsibility to bring them back into line. According to Matthias Desmet in his book, The Psychology of Totalitarianism, recently published in English, our society is in the grip of mass formation. 90% of the population is under the control of this phenomenon, which occurs when large numbers of people experience free-floating anxiety and lack of meaning-making in their lives. Under these conditions, 30% of the population is highly susceptible to prevailing propaganda and becomes hypnotised, while 60% sense there is something wrong with that propaganda but go along with it anyway. Only 10% of the population are prepared to truthfully speak up against the propaganda. It is vital that we are all aware of mass formation and that it leads to totalitarianism. Those under its influence lose all empathy and are prepared to tolerate and participate in gross abuse of their fellow citizens. Matthias Desmet says, mass formation is a kind of hypnosis, and the only thing that can disturb the hypnosis is the sound of dissonant voices. And so we should continue to speak out in a quiet way, in a sincere way, not thinking that we are the only ones who know the truth. We will not be able to convince people to wake up, but speaking out disturbs the hypnosis a little bit, and in that way we lessen the severity of human rights abuses inflicted by the state. The persecution of Julian Assange is significant abuse of our human rights, and therefore it is important that we keep speaking the truth about it. 12 years of torture have most certainly taken a toll on the health of Julian Assange. He is completely innocent. There's no credible argument for his continued persecution. His actions have proven to be in the public interest. He should never have been detained. We must continue to speak up on his behalf. Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! Inmate!
Oh, mate!
Julian Assange! Only one decision! Only one decision! Thank you. Thank you.
WikiLeaks was set up as an international non-profit organisation to publish news leaks and classified information from anonymous sources. Julian set up a Dropbox program to protect the whistleblowers. Now you find the same sort of tools on press sites such as the Sydney Morning Herald, the New York Times, the state-run media, the ABC. Julian's work's been of great importance for free speech and a free press, and he's won dozens of journalism awards as a result. I'd recommend you go online, look up WikiLeaks and look up your favourite politician or your favourite country or leaders of corporations, and just read some information on there, and you'll be surprised what you'll learn. Julian worked with other publishers like the New York Times, Der Spiegel and The Guardian, and we're told that they were provided information by Chelsea Manning. When Obama was president, he reasoned that he could not charge Julian Assange because he'd also have to charge the publishers of the New York Times. But under Mike Pompeo, who was head of the CIA and Secretary of State with the Trump administration, that all changed. He called WikiLeaks and intern Assange a non-state hostile intelligence agent. By doing so, he ensured that Julian would have no protection under the US Constitution, no protection under the First Amendment, which protects freedom of speech and freedom of the press. There's one rule for US citizens and another one for other people, including allied citizens like Australians. This is why they can go after Assange. He's less than. He's an Australian with no money and no power. He's fair game. He's not a US citizen. If you think our alliance with the United States is paramount for our protection, you may want to think again, because we may be bitterly disappointed if the chips were down and we needed to rely on the United States to protect us. During his extradition trial, Julian was strip searched and handcuffed 11 times He was woken up 4 or 5 times during the night and moved to different cells so that he couldn't get a decent night's sleep. In the morning, when he was asked for his name and date of birth, he was unable to answer. When you've been abused and tortured, you may not remember your name, let alone how to defend yourself. Since the extradition was signed off by Priti Patel, Assange has been on suicide watch. He's been stripped naked and held in an empty cell. I don't know, but if I was treated like that, I don't know that I could hold on to my mind. I think I'd just lose it. He's a strong man, but he needs us to protect him. We don't want Julian to die in a US prison and be tortured. He's not the villain that politicians or state-run media or commercial media will have us believe. He's a boy from the bush, born in Townsville, with an IQ of 170. And he has a passion for justice, liberty, and protection of the innocent. He's an Australian who deserves our respect and our support. We need to protect him. So, free inmate, our mate, Julian Assange.
Inmate Julian Assange. Only one decision.
No extradition.
There is only one decision.
No extradition.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know she's doing more like. Let's see if there's any left.
Julian Assange is a hero. He's a hero because he knew when he released Chelsea Manning's revelations of the war crimes committed in Iraq and Afghanistan, he knew that he was taking on the world's most powerful and corrupt organization. He knew that he would incur their wrath. He knew that he could run, but he could not hide. He knew that he would end up behind bars, but he trusted that we would all rally around him, that we would stand with him, and together we could change the world. That dream is still alive. Julian is still alive. Our democracy is barely, but still alive. Our democracy, our media, our politicians, our judiciary are all extremely sick, extremely corrupt. We must come together unity and truth are what is absolutely essential in this very dark period in our history. Julian's continued incarceration is a constant reminder of the level of that corruption. Julian's incarceration reminds us that we are being ruled by gangsters, and that for them to get their way, they must control the narrative. They must control what we think, what we believe, and they do so by controlling the media narrative, by controlling and elevating the fear that we all feel about the uncertainties in the world today. So we must remind ourselves that we are being fooled, and we must stand up and question everything we hear on the mainstream media. And if we wake up to it, we've got to then wake up two other people, or three other people, and then we become the majority. Once we are the majority, we have won. We have won the war. And those who are attempting to control us have lost. And they know that that time is coming. And that's why they're tightening their grip, because they're in fear of losing that control.
Free Julians! Free Julians!
Assange. Julian Assange. Bring Julian Assange home. Julian has to be home.
Like flowers, free Assange. Free Assange.
People often ask, what can I do? The answer is not so difficult. Learn how the world works. Challenge the statements, actions and intentions of those who seek to control us behind the facades of democracy and monarchy. Unite in common purpose and common principle to design, build, document, finance and defend. Learn, challenge, act now. We are free press activists. It's not about saving the whales, it's about giving people the information they need to support whaling or not support whaling. Why? That is the raw ingredient that is needed to make a just and civil society, and without that we're just sailing in the dark. In considering how unjust acts are caused and what tends to promote them, and what promotes just acts, I saw that human beings are basically invariant. That is, their inclinations and biological temperament haven't changed much over thousands of years. Therefore, the only playing field left is what do they have and what do they know. What they have, that is, what resources they have at their disposal, how much energy they can harness, what food supplies they have, and so on, is something that is fairly hard to influence. But what they know can be affected in a non-linear way, because when one person conveys information to another, they can convey it on to another and another. Therefore, you can change the behaviour of many people with a small amount of information. The question then arises as to what kinds of information will produce behaviour which is just and disincentivise behaviour which is unjust. We have to educate each other. We have to celebrate those who reveal the truth and denounce those who poison our ability to comprehend the world that we live in. The quality of our discourse is the limit of our civilization. During revolutionary periods, the people involved in the revolution need to be able to communicate in order to plan quickly, and they need to be able to pass around information about what is happening in their environment so that they can dynamically adapt to it and produce the next strategy. If only the security services are able to communicate and the government turns the mobile phone systems off, the security services have a tremendous advantage. If you have a system where individuals are able to communicate securely and robustly, despite what the security services are doing, then the security services will have to give more ground. It's not that the government is necessarily going to be overthrown, but rather they have to make more concessions. True democracy is not the White House. True democracy is not Canberra. True democracy is the resistance of people armed with the truth against lies, from Taria to right here in London. Every day, ordinary people teach us that democracy is free speech and dissent. For once, we, the people, stop speaking out and stop dissenting. Once we are distracted or pacified, once we turn away from each other, we are no longer free. For true democracy is the sum of our resistance. I'm an activist, journalist, software programmer, expert in cryptography, specialised in systems designed to protect human rights defenders. I think it's necessary to have an understanding that one is either a participant in history or a victim of it, and that there is no other option. It is actually not possible to remove oneself from history because of the nature of economic and intellectual interaction. Hence, it is not possible to break oneself off. Because no one wants to be a victim, one must therefore be a participant. And in being a participant, the most important thing to understand is that your behaviour affects other people's behaviour, and your courage will inspire actions. On the other hand, a lack of courage will suppress them. There's some words from Julian Assange. Thank you.
We are all Assange.